Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, and with me, as always, my co-host. I got Telekinetic Mutant in the building tonight. I got Mr. James O'Reilly.
Well, you got it half right anyway.
Now the question is which half, the telekinetic or the mutant?
I'll leave that to your imagination, sir.
All right, well then tell me what's in my head right now.
You don't want to know.
Oh, he's right. He's right. He's so telekinetic. And each week we take a look at my 1,000 movies I've seen in theaters and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. So if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that sub button on YouTube, leave that 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's how you help the channel grow. Jim, what are we watching tonight?
We're watching X2, X-Men United.
That's right. Probably one of the silliest subtitles I've seen added on to a sequel movie in some time.
Yeah, it's
Very.
interesting because it's like a movie that I don't know if I've ever seen anybody. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw somebody use the subtitle for it. Like, everybody just calls this movie X2, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Until we had to go back and watch this and I pulled out the DVD cover, I had even forgotten that the X-Men United was part of it.
Yeah, so
It's so absurd. But yes, we're
history
watching.
decided it was a stupid subtitle too.
That is true. History history favors the bold, and they were like, no. But we were watching 2003 superhero film X2, directed by he who shall not be named anymore, Bryan Singer, written by Michael Dougherty, Dan Harris, and David Hayter, and starring a plethora of people like Hugh Jackman, Anna Paquin, Ian McKellen, and Sir Patrick Stewart. Now, Jim, this is probably a momentous occasion here. This might, in fact, be the last time we can ever bust out the VHS copy.
Oh, yeah, this is I think you say this every time we have a VHS, but it has to be coming sooner rather than later, right?
Well, this is at least in my collection, this is the latest one I've been able to find in 2003. It's 2003 movies. So we're like very near the end here. And even in my searches in thrift stores, I have never found anything past 2003. So we're quite possibly at the end of an era here with the VHS copy. And we turn on the back of the VHS copy. Now, the VHS copy can't throw as many blurbs on as the DVD cover can. We only got one blurb from ABC Radio Network calling
Oh,
this a thrilling, mind bending, mind blowing journey. Just like, yeah, I guess ABC Radio. One of
high
the other
praise
high
from
praise.
ABC Radio.
High praise from ABC Radio. One of the other funnier things that I've noticed here on this VHS copy, now for people at home have never seen a VHS before, a VHS, you put it right in, it plays the movie immediately. There's no DVD menu, there ain't nothing. It plays the movie and then you got to rewind if you want to watch it again. Interestingly enough, on the back of this cover, James, this one includes four deleted scenes not shown in theaters. So at the end of your credits, you don't quickly rewind when you get to the end of this movie. You let those credits roll, and you're gonna get some sweet deleted scenes.
That's amazing because like DVDs are a thing at this point. So the VHS is like we gotta have some deleted scenes, but there's no easy way for people to just put them on the screen. So let's just throw them at the end of
We're
of
just
the
gonna
tape.
we're just gonna put it at the end of the credits. You can feel the VHS right here is doing anything it can to stay in power. They're like, well, our dynasty is slowly crumbling.
Yeah, like you invite your friend over because you just got your cool new X2 VHS, and you're like, dude, we gotta watch the deleted scenes, and then you just fast forward for the next 5 minutes to get to the end of the thing.
You just sit there fast forwarding for like 7.5 minutes. You're like, don't worry, man, we're gonna get to the good stuff. Like, just hold.
Four deleted scenes are gonna be so worth it.
Dude, it's coming. It's gonna be great, man. Like, you're
What
gonna
are?
love
Did you
this.
watch the VHS? Do you even have a VHS player?
I do have a VHS player. I don't have it hooked up though. I did not watch the V. Unfortunately, I did not watch the VHS. I really screwed myself here in not watching it in its most pristine format, which is the VHS copy here. No,
Yeah, I mean, I just am dying to know what the four deleted scenes are.
I would imagine I probably should have just went to the DVD. They probably would also have the four deleted scenes, but
That's a good
im-
point.
imagine that they're like these four deleted scenes only on the VHS copy. Like that's how we keep it in business, baby.
I mean, it'd be a bold strategy. I certainly wouldn't get me to buy it, but I mean, you do have it, so I don't know.
It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Now,
Uh,
is that something you've had like for a long time, or is that a thrift store find at some point?
this is a thrift store find. I
Okay.
did not have any VHSs saved from when I was a kid. Stupidly, they were gone with the wind, as they say.
Yeah.
Right? The kids say that these days, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
hip.
think
I'm
so. I
I'm
think
hip. Yeah.
kids
Ki-
reference that 90-year-old movie
yeah,
all the
kids
time.
reference movies from the 30s, right? That's a thing that still happens. But we turn our attention to the lovely log line, and it reads: following a shocking attack on the president, the X-Men must stand united with their deadliest enemies to combat a menace that threatens every mutant on the planet and possibly all of mankind. Beautiful, short, sweet, to the point. Love
Get
it.
right to the point.
Right
Highlight
to
the
the
fact that they're united for part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
movie.
Really brings in case you were sitting there wondering why do we have the subtitle? Don't worry, Logline's gonna tell you.
Yeah, it's gonna at least remind you that that something's happening.
And it's there. So that's a beautiful log line right there. Now, Jim, did you see this movie in theaters?
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember I really liked the first one when I was a kid, and this was like a big deal. This movie, like when it came out, it was very. The first one felt like it was very popular when I was a kid, and I feel like this was a big deal when this one came out.
Well, especially around this time for our age, it's only really this and Spider-Man for the 2000s that are the huge superhero properties. They ground Batman into the dust. Superman died out, even further before Batman. So all we really had growing up in the early 2000s before they reboot Batman and everyone gets to off to the races was really X-Men and Spider-Man were the only ones that were doing it right.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when was the Fantastic Four movie, the first one that came out?
2004 or 5, I want to say. I
Right.
think it
So it's
was.
coming up. It's not too far away from where we are now. So it's not that the like people were trying with other stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they definitely see the success of this and Spider-Man, and we're like, what else can we take to the well now?
Yeah. But no,
Little
so
did
like yeah, this was like a really popular property at the time.
Yeah,
And
this was huge. I also remember, being obsessed with the first one. So Big Rob had to take me and Zach to see this movie, and we're nearing the end of that too. I'm finally nearing the end of, the Big Rob Zach excursions, and I could start going with friends now. But
yeah.
this was one of the last outliers left because the three of us went and saw the first one. We loved it. So we had to go see the second one here as well. And I remember loving this movie too when I was a kid. I watched it a lot when we were in high school. And then as we got older and I started to not enjoy superhero movies as much anymore, I stopped watching them altogether. So I wouldn't even watch like the ones that were really good. So it's been a while since I've come back to X2, even though I always really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, and it's also like it's a movie that even if you are watching superhero movies, like you're not like just like over them for the minute. It gets lost in like a sea of much more visually look like better movies, right? Like in the next like 15 years, like or I should say in the last 15 years from where we are now. Like if you're watching a superhero movie, there's so many better options than X2, I feel like in 2024.
Yeah, because the early 2000s ones definitely found a way to age themselves, especially as the dawn of CGI became so prevalent. Like even look at the later X-Men movies compared to the early X-Men movies, and it's night and day.
Yeah, and I mean all that to say that I just like kind of agree with you that it's like it's one that I was a big fan of when it first came out, but I couldn't even tell you the last time I thought about it. You know what I mean? Let alone watched it. Like I kind of forgot that this franchise was even a thing.
It just like slips under the radar with the just absolutely ridiculous amount of superhero movies that came out. But at the time, this movie was a goddamn smashing success. So let's cue it up, Jim. Let's dive into some sweet box office numbers.
Numbers, dates, and numbers, numbers, dates, hooray. Dates, numbers. Show me the money.
All right, so X2 X Men United
Yeah, you put some respect on
opened
that name, Jim.
yeah opened the weekend of May 2nd through May 4th
Here
of
we go, baby. We're back
2004.
in that summer movie season.
And it opens against $110 million budget. So this is, I think, a pretty big difference from the first one.
Still, 110
Um,
is not that bad.
no, I mean it's pretty big though for the time frame that we're in right now, right?
Yeah. So looking at the original cost 75 million.
Right. So you're talking about like it's like 40% more expensive, almost like 50% more expensive to make
You would
this
ex
one.
you would expect that though, coming with a sequel, especially off of a successful movie. They're like, yeah, let's raise it up a little bit.
Yeah. So it opens against that $110 million budget, number one with $85.6 million.
We're number one. That 85.6, good enough, Jim, to break us in. That is the number four highest grossing opening weekend of all time on
Yeah,
our list
pretty
here.
good.
That's right behind Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets with 88 and just ahead of Attack of the Clones with 80. So that's a huge opening weekend right there.
It's good company, like big IP company.
Yeah. And demolishes previous X-Men's opening, which was 57.5.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this was a movie that a lot of people were waiting for.
Yeah.
It the
Oh, here we go. I love when I
the
hear that.
only other movie of note that opens that weekend.
Okay.
I'm just going through the list here to see if there's anything else I even recognize. And the answer is no. The only other movie that opens of note here is coming in second place with $17.3 million, the Lizzie McGuire movie from Walt Disney
Oh,
Studios Motion
dude,
Pictures.
that's some counter programming right there. You got
Yeah, I
you got the
mean,
movie for the boys and the movie for the gals.
it's certainly not. Yeah, and I mean, it's not even real competition, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's you're talking about a TV movie that's getting released in theaters, which does pretty okay for itself. 17.3 million, like we said, but not.
it's
I mean,
terrible.
not.
And I can't imagine that movie cost a lot to make itself. So
No. Well, I mean, hey, it was shot, if I
uh,
remember correctly, on location in Italy. So I don't know. Don't maybe. Like,
they got a lot of tax write-offs because the Italians huge Lizzie McGuire fans.
yeah, that's the only thing I remember about that movie is that they like cruise around on Vespas, like past like the Colosseum. Like,
Amazing.
so stupid. Um, Coming in third that week, it's the second week of Identity, which is the John Cusack one. Where, um, comes with 9.4 million, and then I mean, there's a couple of other movies we've already talked about, like really rounding out the top five. Nothing really like too much of note going on here.
This is pretty
So
much X-Men's weekend here.
we move on to weekend two, where X-Men holds first place.
Oh yeah.
It has a 53.2% drop down to 40 million, and like a little bit above that, but not too much above that, right?
Yeah, that's a solid drop right there.
Lizzie McGuire drops down to third with 7.2 million, and coming in
It's a
second
shame.
place, a movie that I really hope is somewhere on our list. Daddy Daycare comes its opening weekend with $27.6 million.
Well, Jim, thank the Lord I finally hopped off the shit bus. I did not see Daddy Daycare in theaters.
Daddy Daycare is an underrated Eddie Murphy movie.
He's now got a movie to put in his back cannon for the next flick you missed.
Yeah, right. So nothing else really going on here. We'll go to weekend three. Daddy Daycare leaps over X-Men 2.
Oh, yeah. All right.
The second weekend of Daddy Daycare comes in second with a 31.7% drop, down to 18.9 million. It beats out X2 X-Men United, which this week has a 56.8% drop, down to 17.3 million.
Well, you were joking at first.
No, no. So the Daddy Daycare leapfrogs it. Come like Daddy Daycare holds second, and X Men
Wow.
drops from first to third.
Ooh, boy.
Not really like any staying power for this movie. It seems to be dropping like kind of like a rock. And then in first place this week, I would be surprised if this isn't our next episode. So I'm gonna guess that this is our next episode. The Matrix Reloaded comes in first.
You would be wrong, Jim. I actually did not see any Matrix movies in theaters.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
The Matrix was never really my bag. I liked the first movie, and then never really cared for the other two.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Sure, why not?
But
Uh,
dude, this is the first time we've had a run in a while, Jim. So we need to note it. 2 weeks, 2 weeks at number one. We haven't had that in a long, long time since the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers.
wow.
So
Yeah,
it's been
wow.
yeah, it's been a lot of episodes. So we got that's a monumental feat right there for X2. Joining a few other lads in the 2 week club like Gladiator, Spider-Man, and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, and it honestly like kind of keeps a similar pattern to a lot of those movies that you just mentioned, I feel like, where it's like a hot start and then it kind of like fades slow, like not really slowly and surely. Like in the first like 3 or 4 weeks, it's dropped like pretty significantly from that really hot start.
And well, especially for movies like back then, it was very much you're gonna make you spend all this money on marketing to come out huge in the first week or two, and then you see that quick drop off, and you start seeing these movies like kind of hang around in like the lower top five
Well,
for like
yeah,
the next few weeks.
I mean, these were the kind of movies that people would go to like the midnight showings for back in the day when that was really like a thing,
Yeah, yeah, that's really a
Um,
gone relic.
like they were kind of appointment viewing. So like they're just like they're top heavy, like they do really hot like the first week and then they kind of like they fall back to reality and very quickly after that.
You see very few movies that manage to hang around at the number one spot for more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then so I mean we'll ride it out of the top 10 here. Weekend 4 it comes in with 10.5 million in fourth place. That's Memorial Day weekend, by the way. Weekend 5, so like going into the first week of June, it's down in seventh place with 5 million. Weekend 6, seventh place with 3 million. Weekend 7, we're down in 10th with 1.7 million.
They get one more.
And finally, in weekend 8, we are in 12th place with 1.35 million.
Ooh, well, 7 weeks still really good. It's going to join some other notable movies in the 7 week club, like Armageddon, The Mummy Returns, one of our favorites, Doctor Dolittle 2, and The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
That's,
not
that's,
bad company.
that's some good company right there.
Yeah, I don't know that its totals are going to hold up so good though. So let's look at the totals here. Domestic it finishes with like just like a shade under 215 million.
Mhm.
Worldwide it pulls in 192.8 million for, or sorry, international 192.8 million for a worldwide total of 407.7 million.
So 407 is good enough to place us in the number 16 spot behind Signs 408.2 and ahead of Jurassic Park 3's 368. Still a climb over the previous X-Men movie, which finished its run with 296.3.
Yeah, so not bad, but then like compare it back to like where does Chamber of Secrets fall in comparison to that, which had like a pretty close opening weekend?
Yeah, Chamber of Secrets ends 879, so
Right. Like
way, way out.
it's not necessarily bad, but it's not like a smash hit.
Yeah, like X-Men is comfortably making like enough money to warrant making more X-Men movies, but they're not like runaway successes like the first Spider-Man was, or a lot of these other franchises that were huge in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, because Spider-Man's total is way more than this too, right?
Spider-Man finished at 825.
Right. So
So
it's just like it's
yeah,
not quite on that top tier.
yeah, it's not quite at that level. But Jim, I have some interesting numbers that you like.
Okay, let's hear it. What
So
is the cinema score an A minus?
no, no, not that yet. I wasn't able to get a full inkling of the first year of the DVD sales,
Oh, you've got the home
but
video.
but they noted that the first 5 day sales for the DVD when it was released,
Yeah.
they made $108 million.
Right. So they beat right, like its DVD release beats its opening weekend, which is like that's so huge, Like
That's
that's like so
insane.
You're
That's an
making in that first 5 days like a quarter of the worldwide gross again. You know, like
and
it's
that's
why
just the,
again, we
yeah,
talk about this all the time. It's why there's a Last Stand, X3, like X-Men Last Stand, and it's why this movie, even though it's not in that 800 million range, still is like a movie that they want to keep making. You know, it's like why it's like still a property that, like you were saying, they still make to this day.
because they don't. Well, it's tougher today to get those DVD sales, but that's
Well, yeah,
it's so insane that you're making that kind of money in like 5 days. So like, but you could only imagine what they ended up pulling in by the end of like after one calendar year of that movie being out on VHS and DVD and all that laser disc and all that good stuff.
yeah, it probably comes pretty close to like doubling its gross, like its worldwide gross. I
It
would
probably
I would bet.
remake, yeah, it probably does its total again, which is huge. But yeah, Jim, I know you're always loving waiting for what your cinema score is, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
give it to you.
Yeah, what's the same score? What were the people feeling when they left X2 X-Men
People
United?
people were feeling united. Everybody was united. The cinema score for the opening weekend, everyone came out, said it was an A.
Ooh.
This movie takes home an A. Yeah, it builds on the A minus rating. You normally A minuses are, I feel like, our median average of what we usually see here. So
Yeah,
it's
if
it's
you beat
coming out
A
with an
minus,
A.
that's pretty good from what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really good. Which is interesting that it wasn't able to have better totals in its week over week because normally when you get that A cinema score, you're gonna have a good run at the box office. But I guess that's more of a modern thing now than it was back then.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not really sure how predictive it is.
Yeah.
What did the critics think of this movie? I'm interested to
So
see the critic versus audience score.
it's right on the money with each other. 85 critic, 85 audience. Never seen anything
Wow.
like that. Wild.
Wow.
Everyone, the people are united. Critics,
Yeah, seriously.
audiences, cinemas, everyone is
Seriously.
united.
You can't get 85% of people to agree on anything these days.
Man, they
Back
were
in 2004, X-Men United was something we could all get behind.
Man, the writers were so ahead of their time in naming this movie X-Men United. They knew what we couldn't see yet.
Yeah,
Everybody would be together, united on
yeah.
this movie. And then it rounds out with a 7.4 on IMDb, which is, right about the median that we usually see on IMDb is
Yeah, that's like
around
people liked it if you get
the
a
7 to 8 range.
7.4.
Yeah. So this movie was a success. It was a success box office wise, a success with critics and audiences. Everybody jumped on the board and was like, this movie, 2 thumbs up. So now I'm
Which,
going
all
to turn it
right.
over to you, Jim.
Well, no, I'm gonna ask you.
Oh, you're going to turn it to me.
Does it hold up for you? Like, are you on board with the critics and audiences of 2004 when you come back to this movie 20 years later?
Yes and no. It did. I was pleasantly surprised to still enjoy this movie almost as much as I did when I was a kid. There were a few moments and beats that were more not like doesn't drag the movie down, but more just nitpicky to me that kind of was like, all right. But for the overall, I still really enjoyed this movie. I think the opening scene with Nightcrawler breaking through the White House to like lead that attack on the president still to this day holds up and is
Yeah.
so thrilling and way more thrilling than like 85% of the CGI battles that you see in superhero movies today. It
Yeah.
it's so good, that scene.
Yeah, so like that sequence specifically, I think is a big step up from X-Men 1 to X2, X-Men United. I think cuz like we talked about this a lot in the first one, right? Where it's like not necessarily a bad movie, but it's like funny to think of it as like an ensemble superhero movie in 2024 because it looks so cheap and so cheesy, you know what I mean? Like and
Yeah.
like we talked about it like that one dude's powers, he just kind of like does parkour and he's like good with a staff. Like you know what I mean? Like and that's not really a superpower, you know? Um so like it's interesting that you mentioned that Nightcrawler scene because it's like one where like you can tell the difference in the budget, right? Like it looks more like what you would expect a superhero movie to look like. His powers are kind of like unique and they're used to great effect to like build suspense and tension and he's like popping up out of nowhere all over the place, you know? So like that, it's just such a great way for this movie to start because it immediately like shows you from the jump like this movie is so much better than the last X-Men movie you saw. Like, and we promise it's going to be much better like this throughout the whole thing.
See right from the get-go how they've leveled up their game, because you could watch the ending of X-Men where we complained so much about like the silly moves that Wolverine made, or the fact that most of them do nothing once they get to the warehouse, or the fact that most of the fight is just in like an abandoned warehouse. And then you see this opening scene with Nightcrawler, and they're showing off all the progress that they've made in the medium of filmmaking at this point. That now we can have this creature who could phase in and out and go all over the place. We can do all these cool things with the camera and all these cool fluid movements, and everything
Yeah.
looks so much like better. And you're like, wow, this right here is better than the entire last fight in the previous movie.
Yeah, and it looks plausible. Like it looks like not even just plausible either. Like it looks good enough that even watching it now, I'm buying into it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, the
Like,
CGI especially for that holds up today.
and they nail it with like the smoke that appears whenever Nightcrawler like pops in and out of existence. Like it's so well done.
It's really good. And it's great because it pulls me in, because right off the bat, I was wondering if I was going to be in for a much different experience starting this movie, because this movie does what so many early 2000s movies did that I can't stand, which is the lame, shitty opening credits where they're just like coursing through what's clearly just like a computerized set of images, and they got like the fast moving like credits rolling in with like just weird music behind. I'm like, I was like, I hate this. So look at that started, and I was like, oh no, like one of these. I forgot about these. These are so bad.
Yeah, yeah, really tough.
Really
Really
tough.
tough. Very
And
like
then
on brand for the
yeah,
early 2000s
yeah.
too.
And then it goes right into our first shot, and it's a voiceover. And I was like, oh no. It's like 0 for 2, 0 for 2.
So like it's a Patrick Stewart voiceover if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. But then at the
So like
end, it's a Jean Grey voiceover.
yeah. My theory about this movie is that it's really just a long episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh my God.
Like it's basically just he's playing Picard and like that's like it's like a Twilight Zoney kind of thing, just with the X-Men as the characters, you know?
See, you've kept your tin hat from the Signs episode. You're putting it
Yeah,
out on today right now.
absolutely. We haven't had a time travel episode in a while, so I gotta get this energy out
That's
somewhere, you know?
that's true. Yeah, you haven't had the chance to just bust out your time travel mechanics in a minute.
By the way, before we leave the Nightcrawler thing, who knew that the opening of The Way of Kings, which you told me you've been reading again recently, was a total ripoff of the opening sequence
Yeah,
of X2 X-Men United?
dude. Yeah, that's yeah. Wow. Right as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, you're right. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's all I
He's
could think about when I was
yeah.
watching it. It was like, oh,
Nightcrawler
it's
is
like just like
basically
that opening sequence.
Nightcrawler's just lashing himself all over the place.
Yeah.
That's
But
so amazing.
so like yeah, I don't know. Like the movie looks a lot higher budget and it's definitely like more of a modern feeling kind of like action blockbuster movie. Like the scene with Pyro like blowing up the cop cars is was nuts. It still looked amazing.
Yeah, that
And
looked
it,
really good.
you know why I think it looks good? And this is just a total guess, but I have a feeling that a lot more of that was practical than it would be today. You know what I mean?
No, it definitely seems that most of that was because it's becoming painfully obvious when it's fake fire and when it's real fire
Yeah, and in
in movies.
2004, they weren't above blowing up some cop cars
Yeah,
in a movie.
like they
Like they
definitely
were
were
like
like,
they
we're gonna
were
blow up.
definitely lighting
Yeah,
stuff on fire.
we're gonna blow some shit up here today, guys.
Yeah, right. So, I mean like that scene looks really good and like it's interesting because I would bet you there's some CGI mixed in there. And like definitely when he's actually like taking
Shooting
the
the
fire and like holding it in his hand and like shooting
yeah,
it and stuff, like obviously that's not really happening. But yeah, like it just looks really good. So like that scene fits the bill. The scene with the scene when the jets like intercept them in the air and they're like tailing them and they're like gonna start shooting missiles at them and
so great.
Storm just brings down like a bunch of tornadoes like There's just
Yeah.
there's like dozens of tornadoes like chasing them around, and like they all like end up like ejecting from their planes. So like yeah, like it all looks really cool. And that stuff still all holds up for me, right? But there's a big thing that I don't like about this movie, which is like story-wise, it's kind of a mess. It's,
There's a lot of jumping through hoops to get like to where we need to be by the end of this movie. This movie also has one of the worst setups to a payoff. I may have seen in a movie in a long time. And it's just one, like the opening scene of Wolverine is just him walking around Alkali Lake and he's like, all right. And then it cuts and then he's back home. And then later on, when they're like, yeah, the base is at Alkali Lake, and he's like, I've been there. There's nothing there. And they're like, it's underground, Logan. It's like, really? Like, really? Like,
he didn't
fuck
think to
off.
like look for like an entrance or something like
Right? Like clearly if he was there, there's no way that they like were hiding the underground base. There had to be something above ground that would give you an idea that hey, maybe this isn't abandoned.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
even
I
that
don't
there's not the my problem with it is that opening scene because it's like maybe 10 seconds long of him just like walking into the lake, like he looks left, he looks right, there's nothing, and then it's the scene's over. And it's like that's literally just there so that you have that piece at the end to
yeah,
string
I
it
mean
together on a bow.
I don't mind it that much. I don't mind that part so much. What I think that what drags this thing down is that it's an ensemble, but it's a very messy ensemble. Like everybody kind of blends back together in terms of plot, but the story itself just like isn't really there. And it's not like the first one you can kind of pinpoint Rogue and Wolverine as like a kind of dual protagonists that are learning the same lesson.
Mm.
And this one, there's definitely some themes there. Like it does the classic like X-Men like persecution kind of themes, but it just doesn't quite have the same juice as the first one does story-wise for me. And it feels like it's just very disjointed, I guess is what I would say. That was my experience with it.
I could feel that. Well, it does the classic like go bigger story where it's like everyone has to branch off and go do their own thing in like small little teams before we come back together. And you can
Yeah.
tell it really feels like this movie struggles from what the first movie did well that we highlighted, which is what you were saying, that it's centralized on Wolverine and Rogue, and they're kind of like our protagonists that are bringing us into this big world. Where in this one, there's really no, we're going in so many different tangents. Whereas this one, the focus should be on Wolverine in this one, but they're like, no, we have to figure out stuff for Cyclops and Storm and Jean Grey and all these other people to do, and then we're also going to bring Nightcrawler in. There's just so much to juggle.
Well, yeah, and like it's almost like Wolverine's getting pulled in two different directions, right? Because like a lot of the stuff like with Nightcrawler and Storm and Jean Grey, like their whole thing, plus like Rogue and Bobby and Pyro like on the run, plus what's going on with Magneto and Xavier, like all of that stuff does kind of tie back into like, are you a threat? What are you going to do about the people that see you as a threat? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like hitting all the different angles of that. And I like that idea if Wolverine's getting pulled into like building on what he learned in the first movie where like he can't be a loner. Like these are the people he needs to care about. When people
Yeah.
come knocking on their door in the night, he's got to like start killing people because that's his job. Um and then also he's trying to like uncover his past, which seems totally different from any of that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
And it's a
so like it
weird
just feels
thread.
very shoehorned in, I guess. Like, but then it's also like where the movie ends. So the fact that it feels shoehorned in, I think, makes the ending feel a bit cheaper, if that makes sense.
I feel that. And it's definitely feels like a juggling act of this movie would have been better off just either picking and choosing which one you want to go with. Either Wolverine's learning this lesson in the past in the present with the X-Men, or he's going to be a lone wolf to go learn and discover his past. But they're trying to juggle both throughout this movie and then kind of have the two of them just coalesce at the end. And I feel you where it feels disjointed in that because the first half of this movie is him learning kind of like to be a team, because there's the moment, a standout moment for me, which is the raid on Xavier's school, is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like
Most
Wolverine is an
memorable part of the movie,
yeah, is an
for sure.
absolute menace in that. How anybody watches Wolverine in those moments and be like, yo, this is a dude like we should hang out with. It's like, dude, that guy needs to be as far away from human beings as possible. This guy is
Yeah, and also that scene too is like something that highlights another huge difference from the first one, which is that this movie is much more violent.
yeah. And it's always funny watching the PG-13 violence, because you're watching basically Wolverine is a dude with these metal claws that can slice human beings like up, and he's brutally murdering these people. And we know
Like a
you
dozen people.
yeah, and you never see an ounce of blood. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like when he gets that
For
first guy and pins him up against the wall and is like screaming ferally in his face. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah. And that's all fine as long as there's no blood.
Yeah, as long as there's no blood. And I love that scene too, because Bobby is there, and it's such a great like wake up call for him, because you see him in the previous scene when Wolverine first shows back up and Rogue is all happy and Bobby's gonna like flex his dick and be like, "Yeah, I'm her boyfriend, bro. Like, I don't know what you've
Yeah,
heard, but like
yeah.
I'm in now." And then he sees Wolverine brutally murder somebody and he's like, you know what? If Rogue goes for that guy, I don't think I could stand in the way
Yeah,
here.
you know what? You do whatever you want, man. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't step to this guy. This guy seems like a pretty big deal.
No, yeah, and like it's just it's interesting because that fight to me is so much better than the fight he has with like the Freddy Krueger lady at the end, who's got like the
Oh,
adamantium like fingernails, like
yeah.
which
Talk
is
about
ridiculous, by the way.
which is and it's amazing precursor to the MCU, which is all right, we got a hero. Who's the villain? The villain's the same guy, just bad. Like he's got the same powers, but what if he was evil?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which again, it's just something that Spider-Man did so much better because they literally don't have the exact same powers. Like they're very unique in a lot of ways.
Uh,
But they do have the same like predicament, which is like what do you do with the powers you do have? It's just interesting though cuz like it is such a trope these days, like where the superhero fights like a carbon copy of them as a villain. Like
I
I
just
turn into an ant, they turn into a
yeah.
bumblebee. Like,
I was immediately thinking Ant-Man too. It's so funny.
yeah. But yeah, so like it's just yeah, but then like that fight with Freddy Krueger lady, it doesn't hit nearly as hard for all the reasons we were just saying for me, where it's just like I don't really give a shit about like whatever the program was going on, and I didn't even get really any answers about it anyway. All you did was be like, "But this lady was there too," you
Yeah.
know, like, and it's like, well, I don't care about any of that. Like, that really doesn't have anything to do with the reasons I like the one when they're fighting the school, which is like Wolverine's kind of like stepping up while all the other like big people are away, like all the adults are out of the room and he's like kind of like responsible for everyone. You're playing on like his lonerism, you know,
It's like taking his steps
all
to
the
being a
humanity
teacher.
behind that stuff is why I like it, and it's just not there at the end because you haven't really done the work.
Well, because those ones highlight what should have been the focus of the movie, which is, Wolverine stepping in to be that leader that Charles sees in him for this team. And that highlights it so well because he's saving the kids in there and he has the opportunity to let them get away and he's going to hang back himself to let them get away. He's stepping up to be that leader. And then at the end, it's just like, nah, forget all that. Like he's there and he's learning his past and he's fighting this person that's also like him. But at the same time, like none of you should care because every time they slice each other, they just both heal. So why the fuck do
Yeah,
we care?
yeah,
Like there's no
right. Because
stakes in this
again, they
fight.
have literally the exact same superpowers.
Yeah. Like when she stabs him and he heals, and then like he stabs her, and then he's like watching her heal, and he's like, oh no. And you're just like, dude,
Yeah.
this sucks. Like,
It's so early 2000s. It
yeah.
really is like the paint by numbers action ensemble movie of the
Yeah.
early 2000s.
Yeah, and I also Wolverine, Hugh Jackman should really fire whoever was the makeup and hair on this movie because they just gave him the Ace Ventura cut and we're like, yeah, you look great, bro.
Well, you may come to regret that a little later. Talking
Oh,
about
will
the
I?
makeup and the hair. Yeah.
Oh, like yeah,
We'll see.
somebody's winning some MTV awards.
Yeah. I'm not gonna give away that ghost just yet. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. It's just like I was kind of disappointed overall by this movie when I watched it this time. I definitely liked it a lot less than I used to.
interesting. Yeah, I felt that at parts, but I still overall still enjoyed this movie. And I don't know if you can toss like some of that up to just the nostalgia of going back to a movie that I liked as a kid. I definitely feel all those things that you said. But I still, for the most part, like still enjoyed this movie, and the stuff that works and hits really well. And I had forgotten just how fucked up the striker's son was in this movie, and just the whole concept of that idea. Like when they finally capture Xavier, and Xavier is brought back to his son, and they're having that moment again, and you find out that Striker's son was basically just mentally terrorizing Striker and his wife for like years, until
Yeah,
his
he's
wife
like
couldn't take it anymore and like shot herself. It's like, dude,
right.
this
He's
is
like
like
the
this
kid
is
from the
heavy.
Twilight Zone who sends people to the cornfield. Like that's kind of like
Yeah.
what he is, right?
Yeah. And like when that stuff, I
By
was
the
like,
way,
dude, I
again,
like that stuff a lot.
they really do hit the trope again though, where like the person Xavier is battling this whole
Yeah,
movie is literally
it's
just
just
a
himself.
twisted version of him. Like
Yep. We're giving you a twofer, baby.
it's like it's just a bit on the nose, you know? But
Yeah,
then
well,
again, it's
I mean,
like also like why do they do that in every single one of these? Like there's got to be something to it, right?
listen, if there's one thing X2 isn't, it's subtle. I did find there was a really lovely spot that I groaned very hard at when Bobby takes them all back to his parents' house, and he has to tell his parents that he's a mutant, and they just go, "Well, have you tried not being a mutant?" It's like, oh,
Right, right.
gee,
Because that's the other thing with these Bryan Singer X-Men movies is like being a mutant is literally just it's just being gay. Like that's all they're talking about in either of these
it's
movies,
like,
right?
man, really not being subtle there.
Yeah.
And like his brother runs upstairs and immediately calls the police.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah. They won't let
Jesus,
us
dude.
out.
It's like, it's still your brother, dude. You have to imagine that he was with his brother for at least like 15, 16 years. His brother goes away to school, comes back, and he's like, "Yeah, I got these powers." And your first thought is, I should immediately call the police. Like,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
be like, dude, you just froze a cup. Like, that's sick. Let's go in the backyard and see what else you could freeze.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously, right. It's not like he did. They like the way they reacted when he froze that cup of tea was like I don't even know. It
as if he
was
like
so dramatic.
murdered, as he brought a corpse in. It was like, you see this dead body? I did that. Like, they
Yeah, right.
overreacted so
Exactly.
hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so yeah. So yeah, so subtle these movies for certain are not, Jimbo.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
no,
but I
so that
still
I mean, I don't really have much else to say about it in terms of like my thoughts on the movie. It was just like I liked it was visually cool and you can definitely see it as kind of a bridge to where superhero movies are going compared to the ones we've watched so far.
yeah.
But overall it's just not quite doesn't quite have the juice.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel that it feels like one of those movies that maybe critically was so lauded because we're still so early in the superhero franchise, and we don't see how big these superhero movies will eventually go on to be. That now
Yeah, I
going
mean,
back, you see the chinks in the armor more than we
yeah, I
did
mean,
then.
I think you see the chinks in the armor more because in 2003 and 2004, the visual effects in this were like incredibly impressive. And now they're kind of just like, you know, like they're
Yeah.
like they're not necessarily bad or like something you're pointing at and being like, "Whoa, that doesn't look nearly as good as it did back then." It's just like, I don't know, it's just not as like grandiose as the stuff you see these days, which really
Yeah.
like as an action movie takes away from it, you know?
And then with that, you start to focus more on the storytelling elements, and you start to see some more of those chinks. Like one of the ones for me that I didn't realize back then that watching now is like, did Jean really have to sacrifice herself?
I mean, dude, that dam was going to explode, man. Somebody had to hold it back for them to take off in the jet, I think it was.
But like, they're a whole bunch of fucking mutants. You're telling me Storm couldn't use the wind to lift the jet up? She dropped like 7 tornadoes without breaking a sweat. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get, I
there's
there
there's
might have been
so
another way
many
out of it.
they got Bobby. He can't Iceman a fucking like wall of ice using it.
I think you're underestimating how heavy that water would be.
I think you're underestimating the abilities
You need
of these
someone
fucking
even
mutants.
even super mutant with like crazy psychic powers. Jean Grey couldn't hold it back for too long.
Yes, I just feel like the team effort, like you want this to be an ensemble team. So couldn't the team just get together and work it out? And like Bobby's shooting ice, she's using her powers. Cyclops is turning it into gas, like just like zapping it. I feel like
Yeah.
there are options here.
Well, no, because I mean, yeah, you're probably not wrong. But then like they have to do the other superhero trope, which is the person who died has to come back
Come
in the
back.
next
But that's what I'm saying.
movie.
That moment doesn't feel earned as much as it feels like them just needing to set up doing Dark Phoenix in the next movie.
Yeah, because dude, it's all plot and no story. It's like they're like, wouldn't it be cool if she died and then came back to life? And nobody's like thinking about if that needs to happen or why it needs to happen. They're just like, man, that would be so cool.
Or
Like,
just like we just got to get to that finish line.
yeah, exactly. Like, just people will talk about that, and it'll cause people to go see this movie. Like, so who cares why? You know?
So storytelling wise, definitely a lot of stuff that makes it down, not as great as I remembered it being. So I'm right there with you. But visually at a lot of spots, that action, so specifically in the earlier parts of the movie, the action is really great, and the
One other scene, by the
performances,
way,
yeah.
last thing to talk about. One other
Okay.
scene that holds up really well is when Magneto escapes from prison.
Oh yeah, dude, talk about freaking violent. He just
Yeah,
sucks the blood out of the dude and then goes, "You know what
yeah.
your problem is? Not enough iron in your diet, like or too
No,
much
he's
iron
got
in your
too much
diet."
iron in his blood, so he
Yeah,
like extracts the iron from his body.
like
And then
talk
it
about
looks so sweet. Like he's got like the little like iron like balls like spinning around him, and then he like
yeah.
stretches one into a platform that he can go across on. It's just so
No,
cool.
that's amazing. But also like another thing where I watch and I'm like, who decides what's okay in a PG-13 movie or not?
I
It's
mean,
like,
it's the MPAA, right? Isn't that
yeah,
who rates
but
everything?
Wolverine stabbing a bunch of human beings, we can't see a lick of blood. Magneto can rip blood out of a human being, and
Yeah.
we see the blood come out. Totally okay.
Well, it's only because when he starts shooting people with the bullets, like that he's just like whipping around throughout this room and breaking everything with, and they don't have any blood then.
It's they're very fast and loose with the rules.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's all arbitrary. Yeah, it's all
It's all
like,
arbitrary. Like that's totally cool, but don't you dare show a nipple, or we're gonna be pissed.
yeah, right. Otherwise, there's no way this movie is PG-13.
R-rated. If you even think about showing Mystique naked, I got a thing or two to take you to court on.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's insane. But yeah, I'm with you. Visually great, a lot of fun action scenes. Performances still hold up, but story wise, very much a disjointed mess and really kind of misses the mark this go around.
So I've got a question for you.
Oh, all right, let's hear it.
Who do you think is handling the question as mutants better? Magneto's side or Xavier's side?
Oh man, dude, that is a good question. I think there's an argument to be made for and against both of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of with Magneto up until he's like, yeah, kill every human being that's not a mutant with Cerebro.
Yeah,
Up until then, I'm pretty with him. You know,
because like
that's very extreme.
his mindset on being cautious and pessimistic against the humans, I'm with because it's exactly how the humans are behaving. And I'm with you too, because I'm with him with that. But then as soon as he's like, all right, we'll return it tenfold, we're like, no, we lost it. We
Yeah,
lost it, dude.
because like,
And
you know who has a point in this movie? Like, who has an interesting point of view that I can kind of get behind?
Steve.
The pyro guy.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
all that guy did was have his school like raided by police for no reason. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
go to his friend's house and like that's all he did. And like there's like cops shooting his friends in the head. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like now he's on the run, watching his
yeah.
professors get shot.
So it's like him defending himself there makes so much sense to me, and he has like the ability to do it. Like, why wouldn't he defend himself? You know? But like, you could tell like all the Xavier kids like are shunning him after that. You know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, he like Charles Xavier really takes this pacifist route in being a mutant that feels like it doesn't apply to every situation.
yeah. I mean, like as far as Pyro knows, Wolverine's literally dead on the porch in front of him. You know what I mean? Like, and
Dude, and
like
that
they're next. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like,
and that's another thing that really shows how early these movies are is that he got shot in the head and it took Rogue stealing somebody else's powers to like bring him back. And you're looking at watching movies now, Deadpool and Wolverine's getting sliced in half. He's getting stabbed 1,000 times, and he's just shaking it off and regenerating like immediately. It's like, dude, they play fast and loose with these rules.
yeah. Well, I don't know that Rogue did anything to bring him back. It just took him like a long time to regenerate.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is the time that the regenerative power takes went from like if he gets absolutely horribly maimed, it's going to take a minute to now it's
Right.
just being it doesn't matter. He's just going to heal immediately every time he gets hit with
Right, like
anything.
he still needed some time. And it is kind of convenient for like the way the rest of that scene goes for it to take a minute, right?
Yeah,
Like
for it to take a minute. But once actually you bringing up who is the has the better dog in the fight reminds me of one other thing that I loved visually in this movie that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. And
okay.
that is when the president is giving the speech at the end and then everybody like time slows down and the thunderstorm comes in and then he
Oh
can
yeah.
only make out the mutants in the lightning as it goes
Yeah.
off that visually that looked so goddamn cool
Yeah, pretty cool.
and I loved that. But also that's a big flex from Charles right there. Being like, bro, like we're watching, man. Like, why don't you pump the
Yeah.
brakes? Like,
By the way, was Beast not has Beast been in any of these movies yet? He's not in it until the third one.
yeah, he's not in until the third. You see him on a TV in this one. Like there's somebody's doing
Oh.
interview with him. It's like a blink and you'll miss it thing.
Yeah. It's just
Uh
weird with the way I remember things because I remember him being in like all of them.
yeah, like a much bigger
Like
part.
he's just
But
such a
nope.
part of it in my head, but he really wasn't.
Yeah, it really wasn't until the third one. And still hilarious to this day that it was Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, not also hilarious that Alan Cumming is playing Nightcrawler.
Also amazing, dude. They cast it very well. They cast these movies very well. I do have to give them. They're always picking like
Hopefully.
an outside hit, and it always
Currently the
pays off.
host of the Emmy Award winning reality television show, The Traitors, Alan Cumming.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on X2 X-Men United. It seems we were not as united this go around. And with that, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of awards this movie was up for, Jim. This movie had to have been nominated for an untold amount of MTV Movie Awards.
So the movie has 6 wins and 41 nominations
All right.
in total. We'll talk a little bit about the wins here.
A lot of noms.
Halle Berry wins Best Actress for the 2004 BET Awards, shared with Gothica. So I'm assuming it means like she had both of those movies come out in 2004, and it's like it was like a cumulative award.
Dude, for Gothica, like, come on.
Um, the BMI Film Music Award from the
Yeah, that's a thing,
BMI
sure.
Film and TV Awards. It
Totally.
wins. John Ottman wins, which for BMI Film Music. So I guess like the music was good. I don't know.
He did the music.
John Ottman, I suppose.
John
Is the
Ottman.
one.
Oh, all right. Yeah, sure. Why not?
We're gonna save a couple of these wins. There was one other one that we needed to hit though, because
Mhm.
we talked about it. Yeah, the Canadian Network of Makeup Artists.
Oh boy. Yeah, I guess I'm eating my words here.
It's the 2004 winner of the Canadian Network of Makeup Artist Awards for Best Hairstyling for a Feature Film.
That had to have been for like Holly Berry's wig and Rogue's white stripe in her hair, because
And
certainly wasn't for Ace
Wolverine's
Ventura.
fucking haircut. It also wins the Golden Schmo Award for Best
Oh, the
Sci-Fi
Golden
Movie of
Schmo
the
coming
Year.
around again.
And it also gets a nomination for Best Makeup and Hairstyling for the International Online Cinema Awards.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it really is amazing how many different award shows there are. I'm kind of blown away by just the sheer amount of things you've never heard of
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
giving
the amount
these
that you've never
awards.
heard of. Like, do they get does anyone show up for these?
I don't know. I mean, somebody must, right? It's like just another nomination because we talked a lot about visual effects in this episode. The Awards Circuit Community Awards. Is that like just awards about the awards circuit?
Yeah, like what? Like what the fuck are you talking about?
But it's a 2003 nominee of the Awards Circuit Community Awards.
Like you did so well on the circuit this year. We're giving you an award.
But it's nominee for best visual effects.
Oh my god. You were nominated for so many visual effects. We're gonna nominate you for being nominated.
Yeah. And then we're gonna get to the two headliners
Oh
of the
boy.
IMDb Awards,
Here
as
we go.
usual.
Here we go.
The 2003 Teen Choice Awards. This
Oh,
movie gets
that's a
nominated
big
for
one.
5 Teen Choice Awards.
Oh Jesus.
Uh, this is like this is why the Teen Choice Awards are the greatest. I'm gonna have to scroll a little bit to find this category, I think,
Oh
because
boy.
it is very, very, very specific.
Oh boy.
Uh, the Teen Choice Award for Movie Liar.
What?
Rebecca Romaine is nominated for the Teen Choice Award for Movie Liar,
Like
which I'm guessing she's nominated because she plays like a shapeshifter. So she's
yeah,
theoretically lying by
she,
shapeshifting.
she's doing a lot of shady stuff.
Both Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey are nominated in this category, by the way. I don't
For,
remember if we talked about it in that episode.
oh, that's amazing.
But
For
they're
How to
both
Lose a Guy in
nominated
10
for How to
Days.
Lose a Guy in 10 Days for Choice Movie Liar, which is just
Amazing.
they go head to head. Renee Zellweger for Chicago is nominated. So this is a
Dude,
pretty heavy hitter
the
category.
who's who of terrible people.
Yeah, and there's a couple other ones in here. I don't really know what they lied about in these movies, but Made in Manhattan, Colin Farrell for Phone Booth, and then Jennifer Aniston for The Good Girl. They
Oh
all
my
lose to
God.
the eventual and obvious winner, Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, dude, absolutely. That's the king of cons right there.
Yeah, but so
What
no,
a
Rebecca
like
Romaine though nominated for the Teen Choice Movie Liar Award.
who decided that would be an award though?
I
And
don't I
is
don't
that an
know.
award they're
The
still giving
teens.
out today?
It's the Teen Choice Awards. I guess the teens choose, right? From what I hear, teens love lying. I don't know.
Best liar. They were like, we learned so much from him this year.
2003 nominee for the Teen Choice Award for Movie Actress, Drama, Action, Adventure. Do you want to take a guess?
Which of them got nominated?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Is it Mystique again?
No.
Is it Jean Grey?
Nope. Swing and a miss times 2.
Fuck. It's the mom.
Dude,
Have you
how
ever
are you
tried
coming
not
up with
being
Halle
a
Berry?
mutant?
You're literally guessing everyone but Halle Berry. She gets nominated. This is another like cumulative one where she gets nominated for X-Men United and Die Another Day.
Oh dear God.
2004 was a big year for Halle Berry, man. If all these
Die
movies
Another
came out.
Day.
She loses to Jennifer Aniston in The Good Girl, takes home that award.
Never even heard of that
Jennifer
movie.
Garner is nominated for Daredevil, which is another. Rebecca Romaine was nominated also.
Aha! Huzzah!
So you got that one. That's my bad.
I think the mom was also nominated. Have you ever tried not being a mutant?
No, she was not nominated. And then the 2003 nominee for the Teen Choice Movie Actor in Drama Action Adventure, Hugh Jackman, gets nominated.
Right. Who's he lose
And
to?
let's see. He loses to Eminem for 8 Mile.
Oh boy, that's a loss right there.
Big
But do you
teen
think
movie.
Eminem was there? Did he accept the award?
I would bet you he did. Also, the other big nomination here, forget about Keanu Reeves in The Matrix Reloaded, and Vin Diesel in Triple X, and Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter, and Colin Farrell from Phone Booth and Daredevil, and Ben Affleck from Daredevil,
There's
and
a
Elijah
nominated.
Wood from Lord of the Rings. Forget about all those people.
They've nominated way too many people.
Because nominated against Eminem, who it's astonishing that Eminem beat him, Nick Cannon for Drumline. Which
Oh,
is just so
oh,
chef's kiss.
come on. He definitely went. Nick Cannon definitely went. He was
He
like,
deserved
this is
it.
my year. This is my year.
He deserved it. You're telling me Eminem was better in 8 Mile? Okay, whatever you say. Yeah, sure. And then the last Teen Choice nomination here, it's nominated for the Choice Movie Drama Action Adventure, which I am gonna take a stab in the dark while I look for it. That it's gonna lose to Lord of the Rings, would be my guess. Oh no, it loses to The Matrix Reloaded.
All right.
Also nominated Drumline. Also-
And dude, the teens are really speaking.
the teens loved Drumline, dude.
The
I was one of
teens
them. That's for sure.
needed drumline.
And then finally, our last award ceremony, which we go to this well a lot, the 2004 MTV Movie and TV Awards.
This is the king right here.
This is another big win here. Breakthrough
X-Men?
Male Performance, 2004 winner. Do you want to take a guess at who it is? Because you are absolutely not gonna get it.
Someone from X-Men?
Yeah, winner for Breakthrough Male Performance.
Breakthrough male performance.
Yep.
Is it Iro?
No.
Is it Bobby?
It's Bobby, but
Yeah.
you know his name.
Yeah, I have no idea. Sean Ashmore.
Shawn Ashmore.
Yeah, I got him,
Ashmore
baby.
beats out the likes of Ludacris from Too Fast, Too Furious, Shia LaBeouf from
Ooh.
Holes, like we spoke
Oh,
about,
come on.
Cillian Murphy from 28 Days Later.
Oh, yeah, we did this one last week. Yeah,
Yeah,
freaking
and
Cillian Murphy.
Omarion from You Got Served.
Dude, Cillian Murphy's
Um,
still rolling in his beautiful house. It's like, how fucking
then-
dare I lose this?
Some other nominees here. It's nominated for the MTV Movie Award for Best Movie, which
Naturally.
it loses to Lord of the Rings.
At least the MTV Movie Awards knew what was going on. Was Drumline still nominated?
No, Drumline wasn't nominated.
Oh.
There's only 5 nominees for Best
All
Movie.
right. So it's good. MTV Movies has some respect here.
So the winner is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. But the other nominees, again, there's 2 of these that really don't belong, and we're gonna see if you can figure them out. So the Return of the King wins. Finding Nemo is nominated.
Deserved.
Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl is nominated.
Deserved.
X2 X-Men United is nominated.
Eh,
getting a little iffy. And then unbelievably, the 5th and final nominee for Best Movie at the 2004 MTV Movie Awards is
Fast and Furious.
50 First Dates. Which
Yeah.
just again amazing that this is
Yeah.
a category that happened. Who looked at these 5 movies and was like, "Yep, that sounds good. Let's put
That's
that
it.
in there."
That's definitely the right way to go.
50 First Dates definitely is anything remotely like these other movies.
Back it up, boys. We're success.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who votes? Right?
Just unbelievable.
Do people vote on who the nominees will be?
I mean, I'm assuming there's like some kind of like some kind of people who are voting on it. I
You would
can't
imagine.
imagine they do it any other way,
Because
right?
like it's not like the MTV has its own academy where they're like, all right, boys, what was the best of the year? 51st Dates? Goddamn right, Jim.
Um,
Put it on the board.
right. It's also nominated for Best Kiss.
Yeah, baby. What? Oh, it's
Sean
Sean
Ashmore and
Ashmore and
Anna
Rogue.
Paquin. Yeah. Um,
He
it,
blows the cold wind out at it.
just again, this is the only like you'll only ever hear these five movies as being nominated for some random MTV Movie Award, right?
Here we go.
So
Best
we have
kiss.
Sean
Let's see.
Ashmore and Anne Paquin for X-Men United. Keanu Reeves and Monica Bellucci for The Matrix Reloaded. Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci from
Yeah,
Monster.
monster. All right, let's go.
Right? Um, just a real sharp left turn here. Jim Carrey and Jennifer Aniston for Bruce Almighty.
All right,
And they all lose to the eventual winner,
here we go.
Starsky and Hutch, Owen Wilson, Carmen
Marvin
Electra,
Electra.
and Amy Smart.
Wow.
I'm
They went. They
assuming
went.
there's like some kind of like three-way situation going on in that movie, so like
Yes.
all three of them are involved.
I was hoping that they would be perverted and pick the lesbian kiss, and they went perverted in a different direction.
Yeah. But yeah, Starsky and Hutch and and Bruce Almighty up against Monster for
Beautiful.
best
Yeah.
kiss.
For best. Yeah, like just two movies that couldn't be any different.
And then the last nomination here, it gets the fight between Wolverine and Freddy Krueger lady gets nominated for best
I
fight.
love that you never bothered to learn her name.
It doesn't matter. She had like really silly Freddy Krueger claws. So what am I supposed to call her? I mean, that eventually loses to Uma Thurman in Kill Bill Volume One.
Crazy 88s.
I think it's just her versus the what's the girl's name?
Oh, Black Mamba.
No, for Volume One, the little Japanese girl who has like the mace on the chain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what her
I
name was.
forget her name.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, dude. Could you imagine fucking X2 beat that?
You're right. It's like one of the best action sequences. Like even just the part where she fights the crazy girl with the mace, like that
Uh,
part alone is like
uh,
much better than anything that happened in any of the X-Men movies.
Amazing.
And I don't even think I'm gonna do an actor tonight. I didn't really feel it. I like the awards. I can't really pick anybody, so I'm just gonna skip it.
That's so, and I mean, all of these actors are going to come up many, many, many more times. So I'm fine with
Yeah.
there's just this lovely award ceremony here. And I gotta see if I can hop on the old YouTube and see if we can watch the 2004 MTV Movie Awards in its entirety.
Yeah, maybe for the episode intro, see if you can find a clip of Sean Ashmore accepting his
I think it's
MTV Movie
MTV
Award
Movie Award.
for best male breakout performance.
I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
Amazing. And with that, Jim, I think we can turn our attention to our star ratings.
I'm not playing it.
I always
refuse.
wait. I wait for that split second to see if he's gonna do it. He didn't do it this week. All right, Jim. Final thoughts, final rating. Let's hear it.
I mean, like I said, it's an interesting movie. It was definitely much more interesting to me at the time it came out than it is now, and it doesn't really have any of the fundamentals for me to make it stand out despite that. So I would give this movie like 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5. All right. All right. Jimbo with a 2 out of 5. Now, before I give mine, let it be known that the first X-Men movie currently sits on our list in the 28th position with a 5.5. So, will it be able to beat the original
Seems
X-Men?
unlikely.
Is the question. I'm going to give this movie 3 stars.
Oh, so it falls just short.
Falls just short. I'm with you. All the things you said all hold true. I still think it's a fun enough movie, so I'll put it in the 3-star category right there. But with a 2 from you and a 3 from me, yeah, it's only going to give this movie a 5, so it's going to come in just behind the original X-Men movie. But we now have to do some battle with some fives, Jim. So do you take X2, X-Men United, or do you take Scary Movie?
X2, X-Men United.
Yeah, I would also take X2 over a Scary Movie. All right, on to the next battle, a animated movie. Do you take X-Men 2 or do you take Ice Age?
Uh, I'm gonna take Ice Age. I think I'm gonna take Ice Age.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Um, I would probably still take X2, but that's gonna be where our battle will end here.
That's fair. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
fair.
Ice Age, it's no 51st dates, but it's it's up there, you know?
That is true. That's true. All right, X2, X-Men United going to settle for the number 31 spot, just behind Ice Age and just ahead of Scary Movie. Wow, it's funny. Back when we put this question last week, would X2 be able to beat X-Men's 5.5? I thought it was a lock.
Yeah,
Just goes
I
to show.
really didn't like it. I
Yeah,
really didn't like it.
just goes to show what happens when you go back to rewatch these movies so many years later. And this is why I enjoy going back and watching these movies so many years later and getting that different perspective with some time well spent. Now, Jim, do you want to take a guess at next week's movie? It
Um,
wasn't The Matrix Reloaded. I don't
if
know
it
if we
wasn't The
passed it.
Matrix Reloaded, I don't really know. I couldn't even. So what do you got for me?
Actually, you mentioned it in one of the awards categories for
Oh.
Best Kiss.
Wait, did we see Starsky and Hutch? We did, right?
We did, but Starsky and Hutch is a little later.
Okay. So from Best Kiss, I mean, I don't think you saw Monster, and you said you didn't see The Matrix already. So Bruce Almighty, is it that?
It is Bruce Almighty. We are returning to the comedy realm once more with our man Jim Carrey.
That's a bummer that it wasn't Starsky and Hutch.
Well, Starsky and Hutch will come. We did see that in theaters, but we got a little bit of time before we get to that one. But we did do our due diligence for Starsky and Hutch. We'll get there. But
Yeah, Bruce
first,
Almighty will be an interesting one too.
we got to go through Bruce Almighty. I watched Bruce Almighty within the last 2 years. Me and Heather watched it, and I remember it holds up. So this is gonna be a fun one. I always enjoy a Jim Carrey comedy classic, and I think this is one of the last ones we're gonna get to where he really feels like he's at his peak in this era.
I see, that's interesting. Maybe we'll talk more about it next week, but I have a movie that I would pick over this 10 times out of 10.
It was host
That comes
Bruce
out
Almighty.
after, yeah, it comes out
Interesting.
like well into the 2000s.
Ooh, interesting. All right, so people, make sure you're here next week where we dive into Bruce Almighty and we see the answer to the question: is Bruce Almighty the peak, or is it whatever Jim's holding in his back pocket? Do you have a recommendation for the people? What have you been jamming on?
Um, I
You had to have
watched.
finished Murder She Wrote at this point, right?
No, I've slowed down on it though. I haven't been watching it as much. I watched
Okay,
two of the original Mel Gibson Mad Max movies this past weekend.
nice. Which
Uh,
ones?
I watched Road Warrior and then Beyond Thunderdome
The
back to
only
back.
the only two you need to watch. The first one,
Yeah,
we don't need it. We don't. You
dude.
can skip that one.
I Beyond Thunderdome, when he ends up in that like place with those kids like far away from Bartertown and they do that whole story, I was like so in, dude. And like they're like the tell, they have to do the tell, and then like when they get to certain parts and the kids have all their like routine like rehearsed like things that they yell out at those parts, it's so wild.
Yeah, I remember when we watched that, my first time seeing Beyond Thunderdome, we watched that together, and I was like, is it bad if I say this is my favorite Mad Max movie?
No, it's
Gra-
awesome, dude.
Granted, people, this was before Fury Road came out, okay? So relax out there, whoever wants to start freaking out for the moment. Uh,
I would probably take Road Warrior over Fury Road. I didn't watch Fury Road this weekend, so maybe that's just a crazy thing to say. I don't know, but
no, I remember also really liking Beyond Thunderdome. Did you see Furiosa yet?
no.
Interesting. I mean, so
What did you think of that?
I liked that movie a lot. I thought Furiosa was really good. So it should be on streaming by now. I'd imagine you can
Yeah, it
probably
is. It's on.
got
It's on Max. I could watch. I was thinking about watching Fury Road and Furiosa next, but
nice.
it's just like there's something like so interesting about those older ones though. Just like they're like very like I don't know. Road Warrior is like a classic though. Like it's so well shot and it's so interesting. Like the whole setup for it is crazy. And it's got that scene with the kid with the boomerang where he like takes that one dude's like fingers off and like
Eh,
domes that lady with the boomerang. That kid is nuts, by the way. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Go watch the second and third Mad Max movies because there's not really anything like them.
they're so good. Yeah, no, if you definitely haven't seen any of the older Mad Max movies, if you've only jammed on Fury Road and Furiosa, you definitely should go back and catch those originals because Mel Gibson is something else in those movies, especially the later two.
Yeah, and I like a friend was over and he was kind of watching the beginning of the movie with me, and he was like, "Is that Mel Gibson?" Like he had never seen it before. And so he was like, "Is that Mel Gibson?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's like young Mel Gibson. His face is so different, right? Like you can barely tell it's him. Like it's just yeah, it's him. Like that's maybe Mel Gibson's peak, if we're being honest."
Definitely in that realm of the mid to late '80s. He was firing on all cylinders. Between that and Lethal Weapon, dude could do no wrong.
Yeah, but
And then
anyway,
and
what
then
are
he
the
went on to do a lot wrong. Um,
well, yeah, I mean, he definitely did a whole bunch wrong. But yeah, what are you watching these days?
so I'm back again in my free watch, like going to watch old classics that I should have seen by now and haven't. So I watched last night Singing in the Rain.
Oh, yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
movie.
had never seen that movie before. And threw that bad boy on, and it was delightful.
It's really great. Yeah,
It's
Make 'em
yeah,
Laugh is like one that sticks out to me when the guy's
so
doing
good.
running up the wall and stuff.
Yeah, dude, that guy must have been exhausted after that one.
Yeah.
He goes to the wall on that one, and just every scene where they're doing all their tap dancing and everything. The movie is just has so much charm.
It's from like a weird time in Hollywood, like where movies like weren't just stories, like they were like whole like they were almost just like stage productions, but just put on film. You
On
know what I
film.
mean? Like there's
Yeah,
like a
they're like
whole lot
mixing.
going on in them with the singing and the
Yeah,
dancing and all of it.
they're like mixing vaudeville into their movies, and that's kind of what this
Right.
movie even is about. Is about a dude like jumping from that vaudeville thing and bringing it into his movies to make himself a
Yeah.
star.
And
And
it
Gene
does the
Kelly,
it does the
oh
classic Hollywood thing where it's a movie about movies.
yeah, movie about movies, baby. Gotta love it. Yeah, this movie's got so much charm. I was it was one of those movies I was just like smiling the whole time. I was like, this movie's just great. Like, and
It's a good time.
they just don't make movies like this anymore. And the dialogue, just the way actors performed against one like each other in old movies like that,
Yeah.
just so much better than what you see today.
Yeah,
Actually,
I mean
not so much better, but just different.
it's different, yeah. I mean, like the closest thing I would say to kind of like those like old like timey kind of Hollywood movies, like the chemistry between like Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in The Fall Guy, like kind of reminds me of that kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like it's got the same kind of like charisma to it, I guess. But there's not much that's the same. There's not much that gets even close these days. I agree.
Because the delivery is just different. The way they have the actors interact is different. Back then, it very much was, we know we're making a movie. This is a movie. We're here to entertain you. And very much today, dialogue, I feel like in movies is structured more to feel kind of like real life and less like, hey,
Yeah.
you know, you're in a movie, and more so about like, hey, here's the moment and not so much the talking.
Yeah. No,
So it's different.
that's fair.
Yeah. But so, yeah. So people out there, go watch your
But yeah,
classics,
Singing
baby.
in the Rain, good
Yeah.
recommendation.
Sing in the
Definitely
Rain.
a movie worth checking
Great
out.
recommendation. It's one of those classics like me. Like if you haven't seen, you absolutely should go see because it is great. And make sure you tune back here next week when we dive into the comedy classic, Bruce Almighty, baby. And with that, we will see you in the next one. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.